It also tells you that. So, welcome to the Recordbook Workshop for tonight. My name is Megan Parr. I'm the District 8 4-H specialist, and tonight we're gonna dive a little deeper into record books, kind of go over some basic stuff, but then dive a little deeper into what it looks like to put a record book together. And so, let me get my screen ready to go with you. Okay, go to the slideshow. Okay. So record books. What's the purpose of a record book? Well, we know the main purpose of what most of our kids do a record book for is for the contest, the record book contest. You know, they do them so they can have a little bit more competition and win that, and potentially win a trip to Washington, D.C. if they're a senior 4-H member. But in reality, what the purpose of a 4-H record book is to keep a record of how you've grown over the years through your 4-H experiences. It's also a way for you to keep learn how to keep written records, because I don't know about y'all, but in my job, I have to keep a lot of written records. And so learning how to do that from a young age is super helpful. It's also a place for our students to write down their goals and the things that they want to accomplish through their 4-H projects. And they give them action items to complete to meet those goals. And so there's a lot of different purposes behind that 4-H record book. Again, obviously the main one is going to be for that contest, but we want to make sure that they're getting the life skills out of it too, not just the competition. So as we get into our record book, this has been updated a little bit. The page limits are going to be the same for the juniors and intermediates. Now we have upped that. The new thing just hasn't come out from the state yet. But when you look at a record book, these are all the parts. We have our personal information page, a check sheet, our 4-H story and photo portfolio, 4-H project experiences, leadership experiences, community service, other 4-H projects, recognition and awards, non-4-H activities, and college and career exploration. And so as we go through tonight, we're going to break down what each of these looks like and how to put all your information in there and what information you should be putting in there. Okay, and then as I said, there's different page requirements for each age division. As we go into this year, the juniors and intermediates will be the same limits. Okay, so the very first page of our record book is going to be the check sheet. This is not really a big deal, except to make sure that we have everything in there and that our name, our age division, and our category and our county are all included. This is going to be one of the more important pages. This is going to tell us who this book belongs to, what county you're from, district, age division, your category, which we'll talk about in a minute, your number of years in 4-H, your number of years in your main project, all your information, school grade, all of that stuff. And then the name of your 4-H club and the number of members in there, which you can get from your club manager or your county agent. And then the signature parts are going to be pretty important, especially from the 4-H member and the county agent. You want to make sure that everybody gets those signed. Okay, so as we dive into the record keeping process, the three main parts of the record keeping process will include goal setting, journaling, and reflecting. And so the first thing we want to do is set some goals. We had, one of the reasons we wanted to do a record book workshop this early in the year was because we're just starting the 4-H year. And often what we do is we neglect to set our goals, and then we get ready to write a record book and we're looking back on it and saying, what kind of goals did we have? How do we write about that when we don't even know what they were because we didn't write them down? So that's the first thing that we want to do this year is we want to sit down, pick our projects, which one is going to be our main project, and then write those goals down. What do you want to accomplish through this project? What do you want to learn? How do you want to grow this year? And when I say write them down, I don't just mean put them on your head, put them in your head or whatever. I mean, actually physically write them down. Write them down somewhere in a journal or in a notebook or something that you're going to take with you to all your 4-H events, or keep somewhere where you can see it regularly and write those goals down. Ideally, you could put them on a note card and then put your note card in a little note card holder. And then as you participate in activities, file those activities, write down what you did, when you did it, how long you were there, how many people were there, whatever, and then file those behind the goal that they maybe correspond with. If you don't have a goal that they correspond with, that's okay. You can put those in a different category and we'll come back to them later. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're achieving those goals. Putting together a record book and going through this whole process is all well and good, but the whole purpose of it, like we talked about earlier, is to see how much we have grown through the year. Did we accomplish those goals that we set out to? And how did that project grow from the start of the year to the end of the year? And we do that by start that by setting project goals. Okay, so I've changed this up a little bit. Normally we start with the 4-H story and photo journal because that's the first part of the record book, but I want to talk about that at the end because as we talk about putting this record book together, I want to go in the order in which we need to start thinking about it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is set our goals. That's number one. That's step one, set our goals. Step two is to pick our project. Well, step one is to pick our project. Step two is to set our goals. Step three is to write down all of those project experiences that we have, those things that we've participated in throughout the year and all of that. So as we get ready to start writing those down, what do you need to write down? Okay, so we're going to need to, determine what projects we're participating in. And I say projects, not contests. Okay, those are two very different things. So often I see scholarship applications and record books come through and it says, tell me about your project experience. And they say my food challenge project or my steer project, my heifer project or whatever. Those are not actually projects. Those are part of a larger project. So food challenge is part of the foods and nutrition project. Food challenge is the contest in which you participate. A steer project is part of the beef cattle project. It's not actually called a steer project. While we call it a steer project in the livestock world, in the record book terms, it's under the beef cattle project. And so we want to figure out which projects we're going to be participating in. Okay, are we going to do any self-driven projects? Those are ones that maybe don't have specified project meetings that we're going to. Some more common self-driven projects are going to be those like art or citizenship and civic education. Sometimes they're more some of those livestock projects. Another one might be like rocketry in your STEM project or something like that. Okay, and then we want to talk about the activities that we went through. And so as I talked about earlier, have some sort of system as we start this year, put something into place that you can write down the activities that you do, file them in a file box, put them in a notebook, write them on a calendar, however you need to do it. Write those down as we go through the year. And so when you sit down and get ready to write your record book, you have this information in front of you and you know what activities you did through the year. You could even get more in depth with it and color code those activities. So let's say you have 3 different projects that you're participating in. Let's say it's foods and nutrition, it's a sheep project and shooting sports. Okay, so maybe foods and nutrition is green, sheep project is orange, and shooting sports project is blue. Okay, so then everything you write on your calendar goes in those different colors or however you want to do it. You have to find what works best for you. When you get ready to sit down and write your record book, some things that we need to have ready to go will be our our project experiences for the 4 previous years. As we start writing our record books, we can include up to 4 years of participation in our all of our experiences. And so these would include the 2018, 2019 year, 19, 20, 2021, and then this year, which is 21, 22. So we're going to want to make sure that we keep all of those activities there. I'm sorry, it's the current year and the 3 previous years. Those are what you include. Okay. So some examples of some activities to record. So let's say we have a food and nutrition project. I went to 7 food challenge practices, went to the county food challenge contest. I participated in the district food challenge contest. Some things I learned were knife safety. I learned how to cook on an electric skillet. I learned about the My Plate food categories. I cooked meals at home for my family. I made a dessert to take to the church dinner. I took a tour of a grocery store and I learned how to read a food label. All of those things are project experiences that we can put into the experiences underneath our foods and nutrition project. Okay, it could be different if you have a fashion and interior design project, or if you have a natural resources project or cattle or whatever it is. Whatever you do with that project, we write it down and then those go into your project experiences. The next thing I want to talk about is we have all these things, we've written them all down. So what do we do with them? How do we put them into the record book? What do we make them look like? Because when you look at the report forms for your record book, it's a blank page. There's nothing there for you to put something into. And so I have 3 different examples of how to put these in. This one I liked a lot. It gave some scope and some activities. Talked about the different years of participation, and one of the things, like all the things that they did, they put the knowledge and skills they gained through this particular project, and then they talked about growth from the start of their project to now. They have also, they've got all kinds of different activities in here. They've got them broken out by different categories. I think this is really well put together. It gives a lot of information and gives us a good look at how they have grown through that particular 4-H project. What we really want to know is, what did you learn and what skills did you gain? Those are, to me as a judge, the most important things. This is another example. It's formatted differently. They gave all the experiences they have, how many meetings they attended, the leadership experiences they had, service projects they did, number of broilers they purchased. This is one that's in hours. They cleaned shavings, all the things that are in here. And then they put some stuff in here and then put some keywords in bold text so that they stood out a little bit more, so that they learned about responsibility and self-motivation, expanded their knowledge about broilers in the poultry industry. They included the competitions that they went to down here and some of the awards that they got. You don't have to go that in depth into your project experiences if you don't want to, but this is from a senior level 4-H member. They put on here all the levels in which they competed, so local, county, state, and national. And I thought they did a really good job of expanding and letting us know all the things that they've learned through this particular project. My last one comes through this one. Again, they have the years and projects, the number of competitions, presentations, project hours, personal impact. They've given some things that they have done, some major milestones, knowledge and skills that they've gained, and some of the other things that they have learned through this project. And of course, again, added the levels in which they participated. That's pretty important. Questions so far? Okay. Moving on to leadership experiences. Our leadership experiences are going to be made up of those experiences in which we have a leadership role. Not just our officer roles or anything like that. It could be a committee that you serve on. It could be anything that you do behind the scenes, like helping clean up after a meeting or helping set up a meeting, anything like that. When this, excuse me, this table is already built for you, and it has the information in there, the year, the leadership activity, the role, the level, and the duties or responsibilities that you had. When we get to talking about this particular section, the things that I want to know about and things that I would like to hear about, and things that you need to record as you go through is not necessarily what your responsibilities as this club officer or council officer or whatever it is. I want to know what you learned through that particular activity. I want to know how being the club parliamentarian helped you grow as a leader. And I say that now for your record book, because when we get to the scholarship application, which is very similar to this record book, that's what we're looking for. And so why not start it now on our record book? Tell us what you learned through that officer role. Most people reading your record books know what a club president does, right? But as the club president, did you have some significant impact on somebody? Did you implement something new? Did you learn what it truly meant to be a leader? Tell me something specific that you learned through that particular activity. Okay, again, we're going to include the current year and up to the 3 preceding years. So we're going to go all the way back to 2018 and put those activities in there. 2 years for the juniors, because as a junior, you're only going to have 2 years, even at the last year of your junior age division. Our page limits are going to be, the juniors are, again, incorrect right now. They are at the intermediate, so 15 entries and 2 pages. Seniors have 25 entries and 3 pages. So when we look at leadership, what do we need to have? What questions do we need to ask as we are going through this year? What leadership experiences do you have? Some examples of some leadership activities. And when we look at leadership activities, we're going to determine at what level they are, so that they're going to be appointed, elected, volunteer, or promotional. Appointed are going to be ones where you maybe were selected, like as an ambassador or something like that. You're going to be appointed to that. Elected is going to be part of your officer program. Volunteers are going to be where you served on a committee, and promotional is going to be anything you did to promote 4-H. So some examples of that are like lead the pledge at a 4-H club meeting. You served as vice president of your 4-H club, mentored younger 4-H members, 4-H livestock ambassador, made a 4-H PSA for the local radio station, gave a speech about, gun safety at a project or club meeting, served on the concession stand committee, worked a 4-H promotional booth at the park party, promoted 4-H at a school by passing out 4-H pencils to friends. All of those would be examples of leadership activities. Okay. When we look at putting these in, what I want to do is I want to know about what you learned. This is one example where they put the years that they were involved. When we're organizing this particular chart, we want to start with the most current things and then work backwards. So you put this year's stuff up front, and then last year, and then the previous year, and then the year before that. Okay, so then here we added what it was, the role was, what the level of involvement was. This was appointed, and it was at the national level. And then this particular student told me all about what they did as a part of the National 4-H shooting sports team. They also told me about what it meant to them and how all the different things that they participated in. Another example is this one, where they made their own table and they formatted it a little bit differently. They still put the same information in there. What I want to focus on is this significance section is where they talked about why it was an honor to be leading as the president of the Eastland County Council. They gained leadership skills, and then again, they bolded particular words to make them stand out. excuse me, that just gives a little bit more emphasis to those things that you have learned. And our last example, again, uses the same table and really dove in a little bit more into some of the things that they learned, but this one maybe stayed more on the just telling me what you did category. So while I like the way that this is formatted and it looks all great and everything, I would like to see a little bit more information, just a couple of words at the end about what you learned. Okay, let's talk community service. Oftentimes we get community service and leadership confused. We interchange them, and they're not always interchangeable. One of the things that I like to say about community service is that a community service project is not a fundraiser. It is not something where, unless you're raising money to give to another organization or something like that, it's not something where you're necessarily being a leader. Community service is where you're doing anything to serve your community. Okay, so it's cleanups, it's collections, it's repairs, constructions, care packages, visitations, education, donations, all of those types of things. And here, again, in the table, we're going to include our year, our role, our service activity, and the importance and impact of that activity, which is the most important part of this. I see a lot of record books come through that say, worked, this is just something off the top of my head, worked Happy Hills Homes food drive. Okay, great. And then they go into something, but they never actually tell me what this particular event is doing. They just assume that the person that's reading it knows what that particular event is, and then they just tell me what they did there. And so if it's something that is super specific to your county, and it's a project or an activity that your county takes on every year, and y'all participate in it, I would encourage you to maybe add a little bit of information about what that activity is, or who it serves, or the information that an outside the county person would need to know about that activity. Again, the juniors and intermediates will have 15 entries and 2 pages, and the seniors will have 25 entries and 3 pages. Here again, we are going to put the level that we did. Were you, did you lead the group? Did you do it on your own, or were you a member of the group? So it's P for primary, which means that you led the group, a Y for on your own, or an M for as a member of the group. This is one type of format. Again, I want to see more about the impact that you had. This person did a really good job of putting how many people were reached in there. Another good idea would be to tell me what you learned through this particular activity. Did you learn more about what it meant to show kindness to somebody or something like that? You know, you can put those types of things in there and show us a little bit more about the impact that this particular project not had on just on your community, but also on you as a 4-H member. This is another, again, they didn't use the correct format on it, but the information that they put in there is one that I like a lot. In each of the activities, they included what they learned, and they included how many years they've done that particular activity and at what levels. And so I like the information they put there. I would encourage you to keep it in the same format that the table is in already in your record book. This one gives lots of information and tells a little bit about why this particular project was important to them. And then a little bit more about the impact that they had. This is kind of a more traditional community service record right here. The other thing I like to see too is I like to see those active community service projects. And by that, I mean those that are out actually doing something. I'm not gonna discredit the canned food drives or the clothing collections or anything like that by any means. Those always have a place and they're always important. But I like to see a little bit of diversity in our community service projects, where we're not just always collecting things, but we're also going out and being active in our service projects and doing something more than a collection. Maybe we do the collection and then we take it to the food bank and we help restock the food bank or something like that, you know? And so I like to see a lot more of that. Okay, questions about community service or leadership before we move on to the next few sections? Okay, let's move on to your other 4-H projects. In the project section, so section 1, you could list up to 4 4-H projects. Any more than that, we're going to put them here in section 4. In this section, we can format them the same way that we did in section 1. You can put any number of projects here. However, you are limited to 2 pages in this section, period. That's all you get. And so anything outside of that, you just need to either trim it down or not include it. Also, I'm going to scoot back to our project work too. When we're talking about our project experiences in section 1, we always want to start with a project that we have the most participation in, the most experiences in, and then that's going to be our main project. And that's going to be the category of our record book and the main project that we focus on for the whole thing. And then the one that you have the next most experiences in, and so forth. Okay, this seems to be a section that trips a lot of people up. The 4-H recognitions and awards. And it trips a lot of people up because a lot of kids say, well, I've never won the Gold Star Award, or I've never won the Silver Star or the Hustle Award or anything like that. And so they think, well, I don't have any 4-H awards to put on there. Well, everybody has something. Okay, what we can put in here on our 4-H awards can be things like I got first place with my food challenge team at the county contest. Second place food show at the district contest. I had a second place crossbred hog at the local county stock show. And then, of course, include your gold star and bronze star and silver star and all of those award winners. The biggest thing, again, here in this section is to write up what that particular award meant to you. What did it mean to you to place first with your food challenge team? Why was that important? Did it meet a goal that you had set? Was it a huge honor for you because there were 72 teams there and you were first place? What was the food show entry? Why was that one important at the district contest? Was it a particularly hard recipe that you overcame or anything like that? Why are these awards important? That's the part that we have to focus on, and that's the part I want to know more information about in that section. Okay. And again, that table is already built for you, and you can just insert those things in there. Moving on to section 6. This is our non-4-H activities. These are going to be things like your church activities, your FFA involvement, your FCCLA, your breed associations, your basketball that you play, UIL activities, anything like that. All of those you're going to put here. When we talk about structuring this particular section, we're going to want to do it not in a paragraph form, but we're going to do it one of 2 ways. One, we're going to put it in a table and structure it a little bit more like we did with the leadership and community service, and include the awards and things like that you've done through those particular organizations. Or 2, we're going to structure it like a resume and include those in like section titles. You can do that however that that needs to be done to you. But one of the things I would encourage you to do is to be brief with this, because you only have one page for this particular section. So be wise with your words. Okay, so the last section, section 7, is college and career exploration. And this is where we're going to include, as of today, we're going to answer the question, as of today, what career path would I want to have? What job would I choose? And then we're going to talk about all the activities that help you learn more about that particular career, or any career in general, any education that you've done. Some things that you can include here are your work experience. You can include any college tours that you've taken. It could be any job shadowing that you've done, interviews that you've done, research, any particular class that you've taken through school that has helped you learn more about that particular job. You can include that here. All of those can be there. Again, juniors and intermediates have 15 entries on this page and 1 page, and seniors get 15 entries and 2 pages. So those seniors can expand a little bit more about those career, college and career exploration tasks, and talk a little bit more about what they've learned through those activities. Okay, so I said at the beginning I wanted to put the 4-H story and portfolio information at the end, because to me, this is, as we're writing our record books, this is the last thing that we are going to write in our record book. Okay, so we're going to keep our records throughout the year of all the projects that we've done, all the experiences that we've had, the leadership roles that we've had, the community service things we've done, college and career stuff, our outside of 4-H stuff, all of that we're going to keep in our little calendar or our notebook or our recipe case or whatever it is. We're going to keep all of that there. When we sit down to write our record book, we're going to put all of those into all those charts, and then we're going to look back on our 4-H year, and we're going to look back on this on that year and all those activities that we've done, and we're going to write the 4-H story. Okay, so when we write our 4-H story, these are some just basic things that we need to have on here. These are going to be make sure that it's double spaced, using a minimum of 10-point or equivalent size font. We want to make sure that we include our goals, things like that, and that we put pictures in this as well. Those pictures can go in the end, or they can be dispersed throughout the story. I'm going to talk more about that in just 1 second. Okay, so as you start writing your 4-H story, one of the things I would do is to include some different information and structure it just like you would structure like a paper that you're writing for school. Have an outline, and this is your outline. Okay, so we're going to have an introduction, then we're going to talk about our main project, we're going to talk about our second project, then our third project, and then any other projects that we participated in, and then our leadership roles, if leadership is not your main project. Then we're going to maybe focus in on 1 or 2 community service projects that we participated in, and then we're going to tell what our future goals are. As we go through this, we're going to want to make sure that we're capturing the audience really well. And we can do that by taking some of these suggestions. So one is to have a catchy opening. Draw them in with some sort of creative opening sentence. Okay, then have a theme. Is the theme comedy? Is the theme tragedy? Is the theme leadership? Is it growth? What kind of theme do you want to have? And put that in there. Then talk a little bit about how being a 4-H member has helped you set your goals, include what those goals are, and how you developed new interests, and why it's important to have goals and things like that. And then make sure that you clearly state what your goals were. Photos are so important. And as you go through this year, I encourage you to take photos of everything you do. Action photos are awesome. Those stage posed photos are not always my favorite. I like to see you actually doing things with your photos, like things that have to do with your particular project. Again, show things where you're learning, you're teaching, and especially ones that show you having fun through 4-H. Excuse me. One thing we want to kind of steer away from are going to be photos that depict our family activities. Having one family photo in there would be okay, but like every family photo or like a family cookout or something like that, we're probably not going to want to include those. We're also not going to want to include ones that have us at UIL or sporting events or other school events, because at the end of the day, this is not a record book to show you at school or in those other events. It's a record book to show you participating in your 4-H project. When you take your photos, make sure that they're focused, make sure that they're not blurry, okay? When you put them on there, and sometimes we print them in color and sometimes we don't. We don't want to put them too tiny. If they're blurry, they don't print correctly and it's too hard to tell what they are. If you're, one of the things that I like to do is to have a caption underneath the photo so I know what it was. And so when you do that, you can do that, that's great. When you put your photos into the Word document, it's best to format the text wrap around the pictures to tight so that that picture fits where you want it to, and then all of your text goes around it. And it just is and I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. It looks a little bit better. Again, if you use a text box to do that, write them in tight. You can bold or underline impact statements. You can use subtitles if you want. We just have to make sure that it's double spaced and a minimum of 10 points. Again, we also have to make sure that the title is My 4-H, whatever category you're in, story. Okay, so if you have a foods and nutrition project, it's my foods and nutrition story, or my fashion and interior design story, or my shooting sports story, or whatever. You can get creative in formatting the title. You can pick your own font, your font color, add the 4-H clover to the title. Just remember that it needs to be readable. You can also get creative if you choose to frame your photos, caption, whatever. But remember that less can be more, and sometimes less is more impactful than putting all the frou-frou things around it. I would also go on a limb to say that if you put anything in the background of your text, it makes your text really hard to read. So I would be very careful with that. Sometimes I appreciate when there are page numbers at the bottom to help me count how many pages you have in your story. Because we do have a 10-page page limit and a minimum page limit for some of those as well. And so we want to make sure that we're including the correct number of pages. So when we have the page numbers at the bottom, it's very helpful. When I talk about the tie wrapping, this is what it looks like. It's where the text is right around the picture and we're not like missing any space on our thing at all. We like the caption. The right-handed side document did a really good job with their captions and putting their pictures in there really well. And they're both really great pictures. You can also format them to stand out a little bit as well. But again, take pictures as you go, put them into your story. And if you don't want to put them into the story like this, you can always put them at the end and put them all together. As you prepare your story, just remember these things that we've already talked about. Tell the story of your 4-H project work. Captions helps tell the story with the pictures. And the story should not just be a repetition of what's in the report forms, but it should maybe highlight some of those things. The story is also a time for you to get to be creative and to give the judges something to remember you by. I tell this story every year. I will continue to tell it. This student is now, I think, I don't know, a sophomore or junior in high school, and he dies every time I tell it, but I think it's hilarious. His first record book ever as a third grader was back when we had to answer the questions as a junior. And the question said, why did you choose this particular 4-H project? And his answer was, well, pigs are too stinky and I didn't want to stick my thumb in a sheep's butt to make him go, so I chose a goat. And that has stuck with me through all this time since that kid was in third grade. And because it's funny. And that was him being truly honest about why he chose that 4-H project. And so that's what I encourage you to do as you sit down to write your story in April or May, whenever you're going to sit down to do your record book, and include some funny things. There's some interesting things. There's some memorable things that you participated in, or that you've learned, or things that you've experienced through your 4-H journey. Okay, so all of that, we put our book all together. What are the judges going to look for? Well, they're going to look for the learning activities that you've done. I tell our judges every year, we're looking for quality, not necessarily quantity, because you can have 400 experiences but not have learned a dang thing. And I would rather you have 4 really high quality experiences over 400 experiences where you didn't learn anything. We have our judges score sheets right here that tell you what the numerical value is and what the judges are looking for. They just go through and make sure that all these things are there, and then they make comments about your growth and the impact and the importance and what you learned and all of those things. Okay, record book covers. These are going to be the things that we put on the outside of our record book. Typically, we don't worry about these until May or June when we're getting ready to turn our record books in. A lot of county offices may supply these or have them where you can pick them up and pay for them. If not, you can order them from shop4h.org. If you do that, I would encourage you to do that sooner rather than later, as they tend to sell out pretty quickly. If you don't want to use an official 4-H cover, you don't have to. You can use any kind of presentation cover or binder to put your book in. Some general guidelines. Handwriting is accepted, but it has to be legible. We have to be able to read it, and it has to be on the official forms. Paper type should just be regular computer paper. Grammar and punctuation is very important. So if you are not good with grammar and punctuation, have your English teacher or your speech teacher or someone that you trust to be a good editor to read it over and make sure that everything is spelled correctly and that it's phrased correctly and that we have the correct punctuation in there. Our font, again, you can get a little creative with it, but you just need to make sure that it's readable. When you start using some of those funky fonts, you don't have enough room to write things in all of the tables that you need to write in there. And so using a standard Calibri or Times New Roman or Arial is going to probably be your best bet so that you can get more text in there. Text margins are set already on the form, so don't adjust them. But again, be creative with the things that you are putting in there. Be creative through your writing and not so much with all the other stuff. Okay, just some changes that took effect in 2018. We've talked about these a lot. The photography books include the same number of photos as the other categories. There's not extra pages anymore for the photography category and the story. The old report forms will not be included in any book that we have. And we do have some updated categories, and we have some updated category descriptions. Those are out, I believe, on the 4-H website under the record book tab. And I don't know if they have been announced yet, because I think they just went online today, like late today. But we've been working on those to make those more inclusive and give you a little bit more concrete information about what can go into each of those categories. If you want to know what the categories are, these are them. And so if you have a question about what can go in each of these categories, I encourage you to go check that document out. I think it's up. If not, it should be up by the beginning of next week. We do expand a little bit more on things like some agricultural sciences and some theater and performance arts and some STEM stuff to include some more projects like woodworking and creative arts and our more exotic animals, things like that. Okay, so what happens when you win with your record book at the contest? Okay, so our juniors and seniors can advance on. First place record books at the county contest can advance on to the district contest. Juniors, intermediates, and seniors from the district contest, our first place senior books advance on to the state contest. And those who win first place at the state contest then earn the opportunity to attend the Texas 4-H Leadership Conference that is held in Washington, D.C. during Thanksgiving. And so we have, I think, 4 kids from District 8 that will be attending this year on Thanksgiving in Washington. This trip is not paid for the member, but it is an opportunity for the member to participate in and raise some funds and attend with us. So if you have questions in the future, or if you have questions now, I'll stick around and take a few. If you have questions, you can always contact your county extension agent, or you can contact me. My contact information is there. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And with that, I'm going to take a breath and see if you have any questions and answer those for you. Okay, well, that was a lot of information thrown at you in a very short time. I have recorded this, so I will be I'll email Andrew the link to the recording, but we'll also put it on our YouTube page, and I'll put a link to that as well as the presentation on our District 8 website under the Record Book Judging tab. So if you need to come back and look at it or view it later, feel free to do that and download the presentation to use as well. Okay. With that, Andrew, I think that we are all done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.